In this piece of work, we're going to be looking at the retail sector of the construction industry. You've already looked at two industries. You looked at civil engineering and you looked at residential construction. So don't get muddled up when you do this one. You are looking at building shops and how those shops are maintained, not what it's like to work in a shop or to go shopping. In your descriptions, describe the range of different shops that you can think of. So that's everything from high street shops, small corner shops, up to the big Westfield shopping centres, out of town shopping malls, things like that. Think about the way they're built. Shopping centres like Westfield that are built locally are going to have lots of steel work inside them. They're a heavy building, so the foundations would be piled and need a pile driver to go deep down to secure those. Whereas if we get further outside of London, we've got more space and land doesn't cost as much. So we're more likely to do what we call an out of town or strip mall, where the shops are lower and more spread out. So now let's think about the actual construction of the shop. If we would compare building a shop to something like a house, which we're much more familiar with. So to start with, the front of the shop is generally, we're going to want a lot of glass because we want people to see what's inside. So rather than just a wall on the front with a window, it's pretty much all window on the front of the shop. And to do this, we need special plate glass. We can't just use normal glass. We want big open spaces on the inside. When you walk around a supermarket next time, look at the aisles. They don't go all the way to the ceiling. So we don't want those internal supporting walls. It's kind of like shops are open plan living. And to do that, we need that steel. Now, because the amount of people and the amount of things going on in the shop, they're a much higher risk of things like fire. So they're held to a much higher standard of building regulations. They need to receive goods. So you don't want the goods coming in the front door and putting the customers coming and going. So when we look at the layout of the shop, they'll generally have some sort of delivery bay at the back of the shop where goods can come and go without disrupting the flow of business. If we stop to think about the location of shops within or without a town, historically, shops have built up in the centre of town. That is to say that the shops were there from the start, whereas the houses then came and got built around that town as it thrived and was successful. However, more and more we look to big shopping malls which can control climate and things like that. So regardless of the weather, we're still comfortable when we're shopping. Now, these are very expensive buildings and require quite a lot of land to be built. They bring with them a few problems as well. It increases the amount of traffic, people going to the shops in the centre of the towns, which are generally already congested. So if we're going to have a city centre shopping mall, something like Westfield, then we also need to put in place good transport links, improve cycle lanes, cycle parking at the shopping mall, things like that. You've also got the problem of goods being delivered to the shops as well. Now, generally, these are done very early in the morning or late at night to keep them off the roads. But this is heavy traffic, noise and pollution coming on the roads. Now, we now look to move shops outside of towns as well, where we get out of town shopping malls. When we build out of town, we don't have to build as tall or as high. That means that we can keep shops nice and wide, have big open spaces for people to walk around. Land rent's also much cheaper outside of towns as well. Finally, let's consider the layout inside a shop. As we mentioned earlier, we want to reduce the amount of supporting or load-bearing walls within the shop. If you think to your local high street or local shopping centre, you can probably think of quite a few shops that have changed hands almost every year. So shops are designed to be refitted internally very easily. And if you've ever stopped to look, the teams that come out and do the shop fitting can do this generally in a few days. They'll work a very long day, but look up next time you go inside a shop. Quite often there's no artificial ceiling in there at all. There's just exposed air conditioning pipes, the ducting of services and things like that going around the shop. So this means we can easily move one shop to another. And the reason for this is that shops generally aren't owned by the people or the companies that inhabit them. Just like we spoke about with offices and things like that, they're very often leased to people. So some of you mentioned in your previous piece of work how Westfield will rent shops to people and other shopping centres. So this way, they can have a variety of tenants coming through their shops.